Jonah Lomu, attention, il est parti comme un bolide. Il percute Benazi qui était venu. 1, 2, 3 adversaires.
He's handed off his opposite. Lomu.
On November 18th, 2015, Jonah Lomu died in Auckland, New Zealand. He was 40 years old. His heart gave out while his body was still fighting the kidney disease that had been quietly dismantling him since before most people knew his name, a disease he had been carrying in secret since before the most famous tournament of his career. He left behind a wife and 2 young sons. He had publicly said he wanted to live long enough to see turn 21. He did not make it, but before he died, he told the truth about 1995, not all at once, not in a single dramatic disclosure. In interviews across the years between 2003 and his death, he pieced together a picture of what really happened at that World Cup, a picture that contained 2 separate, devastating revelations. The first was about his own body. The second was about the night before the final. Neither revelation, taken alone, is sufficient to explain what happened when South Africa beat the All Blacks 15-12 in extra time at Ellis Park on June 24, 1995. But together, in the full context of everything that has since emerged from players, coaches, and investigators, they form the most complete account available of the greatest mystery in the history of the Rugby World Cup. This is what Jonah Lomu revealed before he died. The phenomenon nobody knew was sick. To understand the weight of his first revelation, you have to understand what the world thought it was watching in June 1995. Jonah Lomu was 19 years old and had 2 test caps when coach Laurie Maines selected him for the 1995 World Cup squad, one of his last selection choices. Maines has said publicly because he was not yet fully convinced. He was a wing who had shown extraordinary physical gifts but limited experience at the highest level. He was not supposed to be the story of the tournament. He became the story of the tournament in the semi-final against England at Newlands in Cape Town, in a performance that rewrote the sport's understanding of what was possible in 15 seconds of open play. He ran over Mike Catt. He ran through Will Carling and Tony Underwood. He scored 4 tries. The Newlands crowd watched something happen on a rugby field that had no existing reference point, and the footage has been shared millions of times in the 30 years since because it still does not have one. Will Carling's summary, delivered in the stunned aftermath, was the most honest thing anyone said about it. I have seen men bigger than Lomu. I have seen men faster than Lomu. I have seen men stronger than Lomu. But I have never seen a man bigger, faster, and stronger than Jonah. What nobody watching knew, what nobody except a small circle around the New Zealand team knew, was that the body producing those performances was in the early stages of systemic failure. In interviews after 2003, Lomu confirmed what had been kept secret during the tournament itself. He was already suffering from nephrotic syndrome during the 1995 World Cup. The disease, a serious kidney condition that causes the organ to leak protein into the urine, producing swelling, fatigue, and, if untreated, progressive kidney failure, had not yet been formally diagnosed, but the symptoms were present. He was exhausted in ways that the tournament schedule did not fully explain. Between matches, he was bedridden for entire days, unable to train, his body demanding rest that the World Cup calendar did not accommodate. The All Blacks team, Dr. John Mayhew, was aware. It was agreed that the illness, then undiagnosed, would be kept secret. The secret held for most of his career. The world watched those 4 tries against England and saw something invincible. What Lomu was experiencing inside the body that ran over Mike Catt was something considerably more fragile. A system already compromised, already fighting on a front that nobody in the crowd or the press box knew existed. He went on to the final against South Africa, carrying that illness. He went on to lose that final. And the question that his revelation about nephrotic syndrome places into the 1995 story is this: how good was the best player at the World Cup on the biggest night of his career if the best player at the World Cup was already sick? The question has no clean answer. What it has is weight. The night before the final, the second revelation does not belong to Lomu alone. It belongs to the whole All Blacks squad. But his confirmation of it, given across interviews before his death, carries particular authority because he was the man who mattered most to South Africa's preparation for that final, the threat the Springboks had spent the entire tournament planning to contain. The All Blacks arrived in Johannesburg for the final in the form of the best team in the world. They had been dominant throughout the tournament. Laurie Maines' squad was built around the most comprehensive set of attacking weapons any team had assembled in that era. And at the center of all of it was the 19-year-old from Tonga, who had just destroyed England in 45 minutes. Then they ate lunch. In the days leading up to the final, 27 of the 35 players in the All Blacks squad fell ill. 27 out of 35, 80% of the touring party, struck by what was diagnosed as food poisoning from a shared meal at the team hotel. The specific details of the illness, its severity, its timing, how it was managed in the days before the match, have been described by multiple players and the coaching staff across years of subsequent interviews. Jeff Wilson was taken off the field during the final itself and was seen visibly dry, retching on the sidelines. Craig Dowd was among those who could barely function. Players who had been at peak condition 48 hours before the most important game of their lives arrived at Ellis Park carrying whatever the meal had left in their systems. Lomu was among the affected players. He scored no tries in the final. He was stopped in space by a tackle from Joost van der Westhuizen, a tackle the Springbok scrum half-executed around Lomu's ankles, bringing down the man who had run through and over the best defenders in England like they were cones. That tackle, and the belief it gave the South African team that Lomu could be stopped, has been described as a turning point in the final. Van der Westhuizen himself, in interviews before his own death from motor neurone disease in 2017, said that tackle gave his team the belief they needed. The question the poisoning story places into that tackle is whether the Lomu that Van der Westhuizen brought down was the Lomu that had destroyed England. Whether the body that was stopped in the 1995 final was the same body that had produced those 4 tries. Whether the illness that had swept through 80% of the touring squad had produced a version of the most dangerous attacking player in the world who was operating at something less than full capacity. Susie and the bookmakers. Laurie Maines hired a private investigator. He has said in multiple interviews over the 30 years since the final that he has never stopped thinking about what happened in that hotel. His language on the subject has only grown more direct with time. In a September 2025 podcast interview on Dom Harvey's show, Maines was unambiguous. There was no doubt that we were poisoned. He described his source. Shortly after the World Cup, Maines had dinner with Ian Edgar, a New Zealand businessman and rugby supporter who had just returned from the United Kingdom. Edgar's opening words to Maines before they had sat down: "I have something informative for you. The word in financial circles in London is that the bookmakers arranged for your food poisoning. The specific mechanism alleged was a mysterious waitress, known only by the name Susie, who was said to have been responsible for the contamination of food at the All Blacks Hotel." Mains's private investigator pursued the lead. 2 independent sources confirmed versions of the same story. Internal investigations were said to have been conducted in South Africa. Maines told reporters at various points across the years that the evidence was compelling, that the pattern of illness, 80% of one team, none of the other, did not reflect the random distribution of genuine accidental contamination, that the timing, the specificity, and the magnitude of what struck the All Blacks pointed towards something deliberate. No formal investigation was ever completed. No charges were ever laid. No individual was ever identified by name, beyond the rumor of a waitress. The Rugby World Cup 1995 final remains, officially, a South African victory by 15-12 in extra time over an illness-affected opponent, with the cause of the illness categorized as food poisoning and no attribution of deliberate intent established by any legal or sporting authority. The Springboks won. The result stands. The specific question of whether it was assisted by the deliberate contamination of the opposition's food by parties with financial interests in the outcome has never been answered, officially, in any direction. The game itself. Strip away the poisoning and the kidney disease, take everything outside the white lines and set it aside, and what was played at Ellis Park on June 24, 1995, was a match that history would have celebrated regardless of the surrounding controversy. Nelson Mandela walked onto the field wearing the number 6 jersey of Francois Pienaar, the Springbok captain, and handed the Webb Ellis Cup to Pienaar in a moment that both men have described as the most significant of their respective experiences of that tournament. The image, the first black president of South Africa, in the green and gold of a team that had historically been the symbol of apartheid's exclusion of black South Africans from the national sporting culture embracing the white captain, has been reproduced on walls and in books, and in the 2009 Clint Eastwood film Invictus as one of the defining images of the post-apartheid era. It was real. It was not staged. Both men knew what it meant. The match itself was decided by a drop goal from Joel Stransky in extra time, the score at 9-all when the 80 minutes expired, the first Rugby World Cup final ever to require extra time to produce a winner. Andrew Mertens kicked a penalty in extra time for New Zealand. Stransky then kicked one of his own. And then, with the match still level, Stransky dropped the ball onto his foot and put it through the posts. 15-12. South Africa, world champions for the first time. Mandela and Pienaar and the jersey and the trophy and the moment that the country needed. All of that is true, and all of that is real. And the Springboks competed with genuine courage on a day when the pressure of 30 years of isolation from World Rugby was sitting on every player in the green and gold. None of that erases the fact that the team they beat was sick. The forward pass that Mains never forgot. There is one more element of the 1995 final that Laurie Mains, in his 2025 podcast interview, specifically identified as the moment that has never left him. A moment that, in the modern game with video review technology, would not have been allowed to stand. At a critical point in the match, Lomu received the ball and appeared to be in a position to score. He was pulled back. A forward pass was called. The try was not awarded. Mains, 30 years later, said it directly. I will still maintain that Jonah would have scored a try when he got pulled back for a forward pass. It is impossible to say whether that try, had it been awarded, would have changed the outcome. Rugby matches turn on many moments, and that try, if awarded, would have been one of them. But it would not have been the match. What it represents in Mains's 30-year reckoning with the 1995 final is the accumulated weight of grievances, the illness, the controversial calling back of what he believed was a legitimate try, and the final result that he has never fully accepted as reflecting what his team was capable of on a fair day. He said something else in that interview that has stayed with rugby followers since. He said, "The worst moment in my coaching career was seeing that team go out and play, knowing that they probably couldn't give better than 85%. 85% of the All Blacks team that beat England by 45-29 in the semi-final, 85% of the team that had the most dangerous attacking weapon in the history of the sport, and that attacking weapon himself, carrying an undiagnosed kidney disease that was bedriding him between matches. That is, the All Blacks team that lost the 1995 Rugby World Cup final by 3 points in extra time. The legacy he could not escape." Jonah Lomu never scored a try against South Africa in his career. In every other significant international context, in every other opponent's jersey, he was unstoppable. The Springboks were the one team that held him scoreless across every encounter. That fact has been discussed many times over the years, whether it reflects something specific about South Africa's preparation for him, something about the physical confrontation style of the Springbok forwards, something about the specific conditions under which the two teams met. His second World Cup in 1999 saw him finish again as the tournament's top try scorer. His career record of 37 tries in 63 tests and 15 tries in 2 World Cups sits as the all-time World Cup try-scoring record. He was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome in 1996, immediately after the 1995 World Cup. He received a kidney transplant in 2004. The transplanted kidney eventually failed. He was on dialysis in the years before his death, hoping for a second transplant that did not come in time. In his final interview, conducted at the Savoy Hotel in London during the 2015 Rugby World Cup, the last interview he gave before returning to New Zealand and dying 12 days later, he said something that has become one of the most quoted lines of his public life. "My goal is to make it to the boys' 21sts. There are no guarantees that will happen, but it is my focus." He was talking about his sons, Brayley and Derail. He was talking about a milestone every parent wants to reach. He was describing, with complete clarity, the specific shape of what he was afraid of losing. He died the day after he came home from London. His sons were small children. What the revelations amount to Jonah Lomu, before he died, confirmed 2 things about the 1995 Rugby World Cup final that the official record does not contain. He confirmed that he had been fighting an undiagnosed kidney disease throughout the tournament. Bedridden between matches, exhausted in ways the schedule did not explain, his body already compromised at the moment the world was watching him demolish England. And he confirmed, in the context of the food poisoning story that his teammates and his coach had been telling for years, that the team which lost that final was not the team that had won everything leading up to it. That the team in the Ellis Park dressing room on June 24, 1995 was a team that had been sick, that was fighting through something nobody was supposed to know about, that was playing a World Cup final at 85% of its actual capacity. What would have happened if the All Blacks had arrived at Ellis Park healthy is a question that has no answer. South Africa competed magnificently. The Springboks had been building toward this moment for months with a sophistication of preparation that the tournament records confirm. Mandela's presence gave them something that cannot be measured in points or percentages. They won. They earned it within the conditions of what happened on that day. But what happened on that day included things that were not supposed to be part of it. An illness that nobody claimed responsibility for. An undiagnosed kidney disease that the sport's greatest attacking talent had been hiding for months. A forward pass call that 30 years later still sits in the memory of the man who coached that team as the moment the match turned. Jonah Lomu died on November 18, 2015. He was 40 years old. He never won the World Cup. He never scored a try against South Africa. He went to his grave carrying the knowledge of what he had been managing in secret in 1995 and what the team around him had been managing in the days before the final and what the official record of that tournament had never fully accounted for. He said what he had to say. He confirmed what he could confirm. He did not reach his son's 21sts. That is the whole of what Jonah Lomu revealed before he died, and the rugby world is still deciding what to do with it.